Welcome into another edition of New Track Record Podcast. Caleb Hatch with you. Justin Kinney joining us this week from a remote location, a.k.a. your house. Nothing exotic this time.
No exotic locales today. It's a busy week. My oldest is in driver's training, so I've had to take him all week, and the wife's at work, and we got the toddler. So it's just been chaos. So I am remote this week, but no less excited to talk about the peaks and valleys that is IndyCar.
Yeah, we have high highs, low lows, and everything in between. Let's start with quickly a bit of devastating news before we dive into our recap of the race at Gateway last Sunday night. Sad news in IndyCar. We've been informed via social media that Louis Foster's mustache has been shaved.
It was brutal. I saw it online this morning, and we just didn't have it around long enough. We had become endeared to it. It was rapidly becoming a high point in the series, and sadly, it is no more. For a good cause, raised $1,000 for charity, but gosh, it's just terrible news to see that really go away. So hopefully he brings it back at some point because it was a crowd pleaser. Absolutely.
Dario Franchitti shaving half, Will Buxton, I think, shaving the other half on Thursday evening at Road America as we record Friday morning, June 20th, first day before summer, and we'll talk about summer and heat at Road America. But let's start with the heat at Gateway. The heat with the pyro. They increased the budget on the pyro, and drivers said they felt it in their cars. People in the stands even could feel, I think, the heat. But that should have been the sign that this was going to be a spectacular race on Sunday night, IndyCar's first Sunday night primetime event. And while the rating was solid, breaking 1 million, we'll dive into that later, the event itself, starting with the pyro, the crowd, which was way better than what we expected. Obviously, the racing was spectacular, as I mentioned. This was just, I think, if you're IndyCar, this is like a peak advertisement for your series.
Well, you hope so, because there's been such positive energy coming out of the weekend for the reasons you mentioned. And one thing we can say with the hybrid is it has delivered excitement on ovals. The hybrid wasn't to blame for the Iowa debacle last year. It was more the tires. But, it's amazing what one really good event that was well attended can do to really kind of make you feel that ovals are on the up and up again for IndyCar. Maybe we're getting too far ahead of ourselves because we still have Iowa coming up. We still have Milwaukee coming up. We still have Nashville, and we'll see what those can draw. Can Milwaukee do better than last year, or at least as much? Can Nashville take another step forward or at least stay the same? And then you hope that Iowa is a better show this year. So it's amazing what one really good oval can do, because then your mind starts racing and go, well, now with IndyCar saying, yeah, we'd like to have more Sunday night ovals, or at least primetime ovals on Big Fox. You start looking around and saying, all right, Kentucky, and all right, Chicagoland, and all right, Kansas, and et cetera, et cetera. And what about you, Richmond? And maybe we're just getting a little bit too excited over one race, but it's good to have some positivity.
Well, short ovals outside of Iowa last year, I think we feel good about. I mean, Indy, we knew would be an issue. At least qualifying was maybe more exciting. The speeds were down slightly, but it added some drama. But yeah, the race itself, bit of a struggle with the hybrid, so to be determined. But yeah, short ovals outside Iowa last year, obviously. The hybrid has not seemed to impact the racing. And we haven't even talked about the race winner yet. So let's start with our three things. And I guess I want to start and kind of keep piggybacking off the event itself. We'll get into Kirkwood. I'll save that for you. But my first takeaway was, what an event. We talked about the increased pyro budget. Several fans who kind of saw our tweet saying, hey, show up to ovals. If we want more ovals, fans got to show up, right? And Several of you dunked on us, showing your view from the stands. This was the biggest Gateway crowd since 2019, per Nathan Brown of the Indy Star. I mean, it was considerably up. And the fact that it was a true night race, I think, helped the cause. I get that it's a Sunday night, and I get they had 6 weeks to plan for this. But between what they did with the pyro, what they did with getting fans there on a Sunday night, the show they put on, I mean, Gateway always pulls out all the stops. Chris Blair does, and Curtis Francois do an outstanding job. It'd be great if we could see this repeated at other tracks, because this was a big step forward for a track that we thought, is this going to be on the schedule in 2026? Well, I mean, they already sent their renewal post the day before the race, so it will be back in 26, barring something crazy happening, and I think that's a really good sign.
Well, it was really encouraging considering the drop-off we've had at Gateway since the addition of NASCAR, particularly Cup. And once you get a Cup race, if you are a track, that becomes the priority, as it should be, because of the millions that you make simply by hosting a race due to the TV deal. So, yes, IndyCar kind of did take a backseat at Gateway, and that was our concern the last couple years. We were spoiled early on with Gateway with the crowds, and then they were kind of fading and all that stuff. We thought, well, have we seen the best that Gateway can do, and it's just kind of be a struggle to hold on going forward. What Sunday did, I think, is reinvigorate the event. It is key to have Bommarito on board, and we can't discount how huge that is. You need a sponsor that is heavily invested in promotion and financials as well, which has been a key to Gateway since the beginning of when IndyCar returned, and the crowd as well. And we questioned, based on the track map, like, is this going to be a big crowd? It didn't look like it, but whether it was a late committing crowd or just the GA that we didn't see, the general admission that wasn't showing up, whatever it was a great crowd on Sunday night. There were concerns that moving the race was going to affect the impact of people being able to get there, particularly from the Indianapolis area, which we've talked about. But it was a big time event, and I think for the first time in several years, you're feeling confident in Gateway being a stalwart on the schedule in the years ahead.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Gateway didn't have tickets for sale on the Sunday of the race?
Yeah, somebody wrote in the mailbag that they tried to go online and get tickets at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and they weren't for sale. So I don't know if they weren't being sold the day of, or maybe they shut it off at like noon or something. Not sure. But there were some frustrations on some people that wanted to go pick up a ticket and go, but they couldn't. But otherwise, it was just a great showing for IndyCar. We've had great races before in front of sparse crowds. Auto Club Speedway coming to mind, Phoenix as well. This was great because it was a very exciting race in front of a lot of people, and it was a successful IndyCar event at Gateway, and you feel pretty good now going forward. You just hope IndyCar can give Gateway, because one of my concerns with IndyCar over the last several years with Gateway, and maybe a reason why the attendance was declining, was they just kept messing around with the date and time. Mm-hmm. And you wonder, could this be Gateway's path forward? It's always going to be a Sunday night race on Fox. I mean, I know IndyCar and drivers have said, well, let's have more races on in prime time on Fox. How about at least giving Gateway that one date at the very least, and say, this is our path forward for the next several years, is Gateway is going to be a night race on this weekend of the calendar, and let's build it.
Now, dumb question. I mean, I get going online is one thing. Did they call the ticket office? Did they just show up to the track to try to get a ticket?
Good question. I have a hard time thinking if they showed up to the ticket office, outside the track, they wouldn't sell them a ticket. So
correct.
I don't know if it was just simply went online and they weren't selling, and maybe they were, an hour or 2 hours away and didn't want to drive and get declined. But yeah, you'd think you'd call a number or show up or whatever. So
yeah. Not. Yeah, I don't know. Just it seems kind of fishy. I find it hard to believe that tickets weren't for sale, several hours before the race online. I understand like an hour before, but beside the point.
Yeah, it just seemed kind of puzzling. But overall, just a phenomenal event. Bommarito and Gateway make it work once again. It wasn't the most ideal thing for them when they found out a month in advance or so that their race was now a night race on Sunday night, and trying to still convince people to come out. But by all indications, it was a successful event for them, successful event for IndyCar. And the least IndyCar can do, if Gateway is interested, is give them a permanent nighttime race like they used to on a weekend that stays consistent year after year after year.
Absolutely. And props to Gateway because, again, they've turned this around, and it feels like there's buzz back for this event again after dwindling for the past couple of years, really since 2019. I mean, that's kind of goes to show you how NASCAR coming in has impacted it, as you mentioned, and also moving the date around. And the start time around has impacted it as well. Okay, what's your first takeaway?
Well, let's talk about Kyle Kirkwood. And still, we just have 2 winners this year in IndyCar, Caleb. And it was really a race in which you felt Kirkwood was there, but you never felt maybe that he was the driver to beat. You had Malukas lead the most laps. McLaughlin was up there. Daly had his opportunities. Newgarden, but strategy played well for Kirkwood. He had a good car, and he was in the right position at the end. And maybe if you add a lap or two, Pato's able to get him, but Kyle Kirkwood pulls it off, his 3rd win of the season, and still is 3rd in the standings in points, correct?
Yes.
Behind Alex Palou. But, I mean, before we talk championship, let's just talk about Kyle Kirkwood in general, because this is a guy that was one of probably the biggest prospect through the ladder in the last decade, you'd say.
Yeah, I think you could easily go back to Pato Award, but Pato was just in Indy Lights, correct? So, I mean, this guy came all the way through, won every championship through the ladder, when it was known as the Road to Indy ladder at the time. He was as polished and ready to go entering IndyCar. Obviously had that tough first season with Foyt, but that was on loan. He was always going to be at Andretti eventually, and he's come to Andretti, won 2 races his first year, had his most consistent season last year, didn't win any races, but now 3rd full season, he's rounded into championship level form. It's very impressive.
It's super impressive. And the fact that he went through the ladder winning every championship and raced just 1 season in each of those series and jumped up. And as you mentioned, that first year with Foyt, and you thought, well, that was when Foyt was really struggling in the early 2020s. And you felt like, is his opportunity going to be lost? But Andretti saw, obviously with racing at Andretti and Indy Lights helped. I think the plan was always to end up at Andretti, regardless of what happened in that 2022 season. And he's continued to grow now in his 4th full season. And we always talk about the next crop of stars, I guess, in IndyCar. And you look at Kyle Kirkwood, and you feel like the performance he has put in the first half of this year, he's there. I mean, he's if you think about, okay, who are the guys that they're going to showcase in marketing and stuff for 2026? I mean, Kyle Kirkwood's in the conversation because of his racecraft and really emerging and getting that first oval win really, I think, cements you as a legit all-around really good IndyCar driver. And even some people with Alex Palou, were waiting for him to get that oval win happen at 500. But now back-to-back victories at Detroit, at Gateway, it's making the championship a little bit more interesting. I'm still tapping the brake pedal a little bit in terms of trying to get excited about that. But just Kyle Kirkwood in general, clearly the alpha at Andretti Global and quickly becoming one of the best drivers in this series.
I think what we're seeing, I mean, we spent so long, right, of Pato O'Ward and Colton Herta in particular. These guys are the next crop, and well, like they're already here. They've been here for several years, and I feel like Kyle Kirkwood, when he came over to Andretti in IndyCar, I mean, he arrived, and we're seeing that. I mean, he got his first oval pole at last year's season finale at Nashville, now following up with his first oval win. What he and Pato O'Ward are doing, they're making this championship interesting. Now, I think we still got to get to like that one race level lead, and they're closing in on that for me to really think it could happen. Talk to me after Road America, and we go on the break and we reach the halfway point of the season, and then maybe we'll reevaluate. But it's at least interesting, and it's hard to believe because we wouldn't have said that after the Indy 500. But what they're doing, they've been consistently so strong. I mean, Pato O'Ward has 4 podiums on the year, knocking on the door for a win. Who knows? Maybe it comes this weekend. But with Kyle Kirkwood, yeah, it's so impressive what he's doing. To say you're the only driver to beat Alex Palou on this season, pretty good company to be in.
And what we said a couple weeks ago with this championship is it wasn't going to be a case, or it's not going to be a case of different guys getting wins, and it had to be somebody that just started putting together dubs, similar to what Alex Palou has done. And that's exactly what Kyle Kirkwood has done since the 500, back-to-back wins. Somebody has to go on an absolute heater to challenge Alex Palou right now. You feel like that's Kyle Kirkwood. Outside of the Indy finish at 32nd, he's just got one finish outside the top 10, and that was Barber in 11th. So he's doing A, being consistent, but B, you got to rack up wins if you're going to catch Alex Palou in this championship. And at least since Indy, Kyle Kirkwood has done it. So it's been really impressive with what he's done, and he's really becoming a face of this series. And for those that are looking for, the next American to really back, not that Joseph Newgarden is old by any means, but he's not a young, mid-20s whippersnapper anymore. This is your guy, right? 25, 26 years old, Kyle Kirkwood has earned this through the ladder and is coming into his own. And you could say the faith that Andretti has had in him since his days with them at Indy Lights has been proven fruitful and really, really impressive. And it really has, I don't think caught anybody by surprise, but really substantiated his talent and proven it over the last, or this season entirely with 3 wins. And still not just, we're not even halfway. I mean, Road America will be halfway. And who knows, if he can continue to rack up wins, he could challenge Alex Palou.
And think about, he was 6th originally in the Indy 500 before the penalties. That doesn't happen. Obviously, this championship is a lot tighter. Obviously, it's a moot point because of the penalties, but you kind of keep that in the back of your mind with him and, what that does at the standings at the end of the year. My second takeaway, let's discuss Christian Rasmussen, because he was charging early, had caught on fire, which burned up a lot of fuel, as we found out, on a pit stop.
Literally caught on fire.
Yes. The car was on fire for a short time, charged forward, but then light on fuel, so then he had to pit again. And normally that's going to completely derail your race, right? And he battled back and gets a podium. I mean, his best finish in IndyCar, best finish in Ed Carpenter Racing. I'm not 100% on this, but do you go back to VK's win at IMS in 21? I didn't see. I didn't look this stat up. So again, correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously, it's Rasmussen's best finish in IndyCar. His previous was 6th in the Indy 500 earlier this year. But this is a huge result for him. I think a lot of people were kind of like, okay, they punted VK and they kept Rasmussen. It kind of felt like a puzzling deal, but we're seeing him really charge, and especially on the ovals, which no surprise, Ed Carpenter Racing drivers excelling on ovals, but a 6th at Indy, led some laps, a 3rd at Gateway, led some laps, and you just feel like the talent is there. You just got to keep molding it for him to kind of advance up the field.
Well, and another guy that's come up through the ladder, winning F2000. He won Indy Pro 2000. He won Indy Lights and with HMD a couple of years ago, and really had a typical rookie season, I guess you could say, last year. And the investments, the added investment with Ed Carpenter Racing in the off season, realists looked at it and said that's going to take some time to show. We've seen glimpses of it this year, but I think it's going to be something that benefits them in 2026 and beyond. And it's all about having the right guys in the seats. I think at the very least for Christian Rasmussen, if he can continue this and finish in the top 15 in points, he sits 14th right now. That's a really good step forward in year two, and probably shows enough that Ed Carpenter is going to look at him and say, okay, he's a guy that I want to continue in the season. As you mentioned, holding on to him rather than VK. You bring in Rossi, who I think has been pretty solid for Ed Carpenter Racing. If Christian Rasmussen can continue to perform and show out and improve and take steps forward, maybe we're looking at a 2026 with Rasmussen and Rossi as a really good tandem that maybe can both finish in the top 10 in points next year if everything goes right.
And he started 25th in this race, so he charged his field through the field early, then had the issue on the pit stop, and then had to charge back through. But he was coming and coming quickly, and a great result for him and that team. All right, what's your next takeaway?
Like 51 car, something like that.
Something like that, yes.
For position, which is absolutely wild. Let's talk about Team Penske.
Oh, there we go.
And not just not getting a win, but none of the cars basically even finishing the race. Will Power last after starting first. Joseph Newgarden 25th after starting fifth. Scott McLaughlin 24th after starting second. All three effectively mechanical or contact issues. And now the narrative is, okay, well, at Road America, they're going to get on track. But Gateway was supposed to be that race.
Indy was supposed to be that race.
Talking about an opportunity lost. It's just, I don't know. I don't know what this team is. I know that with the personnel lost, exiting, that really shakes things up. But with every successive race that we have without a Penske win, just comes more and more astounding. I don't know about you.
Oh, I fully agree. I said, Indy was also supposed to be the race where they bounce back, and McLaughlin crashed on the pace laps. Will Power's MIA that entire race. Newgarden charged, got up to fifth, sixth, and then had an issue, and they didn't, have any results to show for it again there. Detroit, home race. Pretty much the same deal. I mean, no one was contending for the win there. I get the Power had a good result, but it's shocking. I mean, you went into this race, Will Power on the pole, Team Penske's 700th, by the way, across all series. And you thought, okay, Power can get Penske a win. And then he has a tire failure. He goes out. And then Newgarden, he's leading the race. In fact, it was surreal to see him leading the race. They show kind of a graphic of him, and they're about to go to commercial, and they come back and his car's upside down. And you're like, wait, is this an ad or is this real time? It was surreal. And it was obviously real time. Glad that he's okay and that Louis Foster's okay. We can get into more of that a bit later on. And then Scott McLaughlin, I don't know what the mechanical issue necessarily was, but he had to come in, and all three of them, you felt like, Power more so going in, and he was running second when he crashed out. Newgarden leading. McLaughlin had led some laps and was challenging for the win in the top five. All three legit shots to win going into this race. All three finish in the back end of the grid in the late 20s. It's wild we've made it this far. And I'm not sure what's more shocking, Team Penske being winless or kind of in tandem with that, Team Chevy being winless as well, because this was a race we thought for sure Chevy's going to win. Chevy had locked out the top five for large portions of this race. It felt like a foregone conclusion. And then Kirkwood and Honda sneak in and get the win late. But I don't know what there's left to say. I mean, we kind of beat this drum a lot, but the personnel changes behind the scenes. You have Newgarden just struggling period this year. Will Power fighting a contract year. You kind of wonder if he got the word on that or not. I mean, apparently that decision's going to come in the next few weeks per Marshall Pruitt at Racer.com. And then obviously with McLaughlin and the unfortunate thing that happened in the Indy 500, and you're just trying to mentally get back on track for the season. There are so many things working against them right now, which is just hard to believe when we're talking about the class of the field normally. But it has been a disastrous season, and it continues to be so through Gateway.
Well, anytime you get rid of three very, very talented guys at their craft, which Penske did, of course, around Indy, it's going to affect the program. But let's not pretend that this team wasn't struggling before that happened. And it absolutely was. I think the inability to have continuity, or find themselves with the continuity they had prior to Indy, with guys like Tim Cindric going out the door, really has affected the season post Indy. So they had their issues early in the season. You felt like, well, with this group, they're going to figure it out. Well, when you take certain guys, important guys, out of that group due to being fired, then you're really struggling to try to find it. And even teams like Penske, which are tremendously deep in talent and engineering talent and budget and all that stuff, you take out three guys like that, then you're going to struggle to find it. And that's where I think Penske is. And I kind of look at it more on it's almost, Penske is in a season where we've seen other teams and other drivers be where they've had such inconsistent seasons that when they do have a good car, the drivers are almost pushing it a bit too much. I think we saw that on McLaughlin at the 500. And we've seen it with the other drivers at various times this year, is when they do have a chance to be up there, maybe they do something they wouldn't otherwise do, and it affects them. And obviously Joseph Newgarden was innocent bystander with Louis Foster, and mechanicals with the other two. But that said, it's a combination of factors, and sometimes things just don't go your way for a race or a series of races or a season. We're just not used to that being Team Penske, and that's what's so amazing about this.
Yes, the fact that it just kind of continues to go down this path, and the challenges for the team, I mean, they've been self-inflicted. I mean, it's not outside stuff. It's self-inflicted stuff, and who knows, maybe they...
I mean, I feel like if Joseph Newgarden doesn't run into Louis Foster, I mean, he's probably the likely winner at Gateway. I mean, anything could have happened, but he was in a position to win that race. So it's been self-inflicted, but also some bad luck, and I think that was obviously on display with Newgarden on Sunday night.
For sure. It's time for my third?
You're number 3, yes, sir.
Okay, my number 3 on this race. Let's talk Prema. Between Callum Ilott going on a strategy run late, had to duck into the pits, ended up finishing 18th. But then Robert Schwartzman, who's engineer for the Indy 500, is back for the ovals. They were able to work a deal on that. Went from 24th to 10th. First top 10 for Prema. Obviously, first top 10 for Robert Schwartzman. But they played a factor late in this race, which is something we've not been able to say really at any other track. And to do it on an oval, on a short oval, where if your car setup is bad, it's a absolute disaster of a day. You can see Graham Rahal's performance with that. But they're making strides, and I think we thought they'd have a long way to go, and they still do. But this is a huge step forward. Obviously, winning the Indy 500 pole was a big deal. But they were able to be a factor late in a race, contending for a win and in positions at the front. And while it didn't work out for Ilott and also Felix Rosenquist on that strategy call with trying to stretch the fuel, Robert Schwartzman able to make a top 10 out of it. Very impressive by that young team, and hopefully it builds their confidence moving forward.
Well, when we look at Prema and knew what they were up against this year and what they needed to do, when we came into the season, we said, okay, Callum Ilot's that established guy. He's going to be the asset for Prema. And he absolutely has behind the scenes. But if you would have told me that Robert Schwartzman would be 4 positions ahead of Callum Ilott in points almost midway through the season, I would have thought you were crazy.
Right.
But here we are. And you're almost looking at it and go, okay, Robert Schwartzman is the guy that I think has really led this team on track. And so you look at maybe Schwartzman as really exceeding expectations and Callum Ilott not meeting expectations, which you would expect them to kind of be flipped with Schwartzman being a rookie and for the first time facing ovals and all that. So, I mean, Prema's been interesting. It's been fascinating through the year. Obviously, the poll for Schwartzman was huge. It's just, man, you kind of what Schwartzman is doing, you expected Callum Ilott to be doing this year.
And I think part of that is on us because we're not locked into the European F1 ladder system. And obviously he had some good runs in F2 and in F3. And if you're a Ferrari reserve driver, you got to be pretty good, right? And I think we didn't maybe realize how talented he was. And Will Buxton was kind of singing, Robert Schwartzman's praises, having followed him in the F1 ladder for years. We kind of got more word of that in May. But this is very impressive what he's doing. And, yeah, he's 22nd in the standings. He has the Indy 500 pole and the first top 10 for a new team. It doesn't sound like a lot, but for what our expectations were going into the season, this is a big step forward. And to do it on a short oval, I think, to me, is the most impressive part.
Absolutely. And just to do it on ovals, period, so far for Robert Schwartzman has been nothing short of impressive. And you wonder, for a guy that you felt, okay, is this just Schwartzman? He's got familiarity with Prema. He's going to come over and do this and help establish the team. But then once the team gets going, it's going to find some more, maybe better prospects for this side of the pond. All of a sudden you look at Robert Schwartzman and say, well, if he can continue this and maybe a second year at Prema and take strides, like, does he end up at one of the bigger teams in a couple years? I mean, that's how impressive Schwartzman has been so far this season, in my mind.
Well, and he leads the Rookie of the Year standings by 18 points now over Louis Foster, who's had some pretty bad crashes the last couple of races. But, not the position we thought Schwartzman or Prema would be in at this point, indeed. Okay, what's your third point?
Well, let's talk about Nolan Siegel. And definitely had the quotes of the weekend via radio. Slightly upset at his penalty, which, to say the least, I joked with you. I didn't realize Nolan Siegel was allowed to say those words. But when he says, quote, Penske can F off, I found pretty endearing to Nolan Siegel. What was the penalty?
So it was
it the
blocking on
usage?
Yeah, it was
the blocking. Okay,
the blocking of, let's see,
which was obvious, I thought.
Yes, it was blocking. He got a drive through for blocking McLaughlin. Yeah, it was an obvious penalty. But any driver's going to react like that in the heat of the moment when you feel like it's going to ruin your race. So I understand that. But what I don't understand, one, drivers and driver radio is always in the heat of the moment. And I think you need context, because when you take it out of context and you put it out there and it's on social media and everyone see it, it's shocking. But I think that's unfair to the drivers. And also,
totally,
these guys this is really intense stuff, right? You're not just sitting on the couch channel surfing. You're driving a race car going 180 miles an hour on a short oval at nighttime, your life on the line, competing to try to keep your job. The statement that the team put out, this isn't F1 and their stupid rule against, curse words. Like this is
cursing.
This is real racing. I hate that he had to and the team put a statement out. I understand maybe on the aspect of, kind of bad-mouthing the series is not good, but it seemed like a reach. It was disappointing that that's the route that they took to respond to all this. I didn't think that was necessary, and I think James Hinchcliffe said it best with all of this, and I got to find his exact words, but it was disappointing that this was the reaction. We'll have some tweets of the week on this as well that I thought were pretty good, but here's what Hinchcliffe said. He said, "What drivers say in the heat of the moment is not a true representation of who they are, what they believe. If you've never raced at a professional level, you have no real basis to judge. If you don't like what you're hearing, stop listening. Can't wait for Ask Off Track next week." Talking about their podcast with Alex Rossi.
I don't blame Nolan Siegel in the least in terms of his reaction. I'm sure once he saw a replay and really kind of took things in, he could see, yeah, okay. My question is, or what I'm wondering is, the reaction from Nolan Siegel. You mentioned this is a high-stress environment in which you're trying to keep your job. Now, I know that McLaren has said its lineup is staying the same next year.
Yes.
I know that Nolan Siegel brings a hell of a lot of money to that team. But Nolan Siegel is also 21st in points. That will not fly at McLaren, no matter how much money you're bringing, eventually. I think he's starting to feel the heat, Caleb. I really do. I mean, this is a guy that now has raced an entire season with McLaren. He stepped into the seat last year through 8 races, and his first race was, I think, Laguna Seca last year. So a full amount of races, 18. He has 2 top 10s and no better finish than 7th. That's not going to cut it at McLaren, no matter how much money you're bringing in. And we know how McLaren loves to say that this is going to be the case, and then it changes. Just ask David Malukas how that goes. And I think the second half of the season is very, very important for Nolan Siegel. I mean, it's not a guarantee right now, Caleb, that he finishes in the top 22 and gets leader circle money or top 25 or whatever it is. And that can't happen in McLaren. That cannot happen.
Yeah, I mean, they confirmed, a team spokesperson confirmed with Nathan Brown and the Indy Star that their driver lineup will return. But like you said, we've had changes. I hope they see this through, because I understand that people have their takes on Nolan Siegel, but he's a young driver. And at the end of the day, you want to see young drivers given a fair opportunity in the sport, and quite often that does not happen enough. Very few drivers. I mean, you look at Joseph Newgarden. He got an opportunity. Based on his early results, he didn't have a single top 10 in his first full season. But he got an opportunity. He's turned into, an all-time great in the sport. So I just hope Siegel gets the opportunity to learn and grow, give him one more full-time season, and then we can make our assessment. But yes, I do agree that he probably is feeling the heat. Yeah, I think, I wonder. I don't know. If he finishes 21st in points where he is right now, is he back in the seat next year? If he wasn't bringing any money, the answer is no. But he is bringing a lot of money. He's effectively funding that entire ride, and probably more so. But we've talked about drivers, Kyle Kirkwood, Christian Rasmussen, that have come up through the ladder and won at every level. And for Nolan Siegel, he has not won. He raced 3 years in F2000. Highest finish in that series was 8th. Never won a race in there. Indy Pro 2000 for 2 years, finished 4th. And then 3 years, or 2.5 years effectively, in Indy Lights, and best finish of 3rd. This is not a guy that was owning the ladder coming up. So Nolan Siegel is in this seat because of money. And as long as the money keeps coming, he gets a pass, a little bit of a pass. But this is McLaren, and they're not going to put up with drivers that are not producing. And when you have a guy in 2nd in points, you have a guy in 4th in points,
and you have a guy in 21st in points. And I know they're playing the long game with Nolan Siegel, still only 20 years old, but I feel like the reaction that we saw on Sunday night is indicative of the fact that Nolan Siegel is starting to feel the heat at McLaren, and he needs to start putting up some results.
McLaren put themselves in a bad spot by pulling the trigger so quickly with David Malukas and Teo Pourchaire. Now they say they're going to hold on to a driver, and they get criticized because the results aren't there. I mean, they can't win either way, and that is a self-inflicted thing, right? I hope they see this through, but this, I guess, is the reality of the territory they kind of put themselves in to begin with last year. Now the backlash is there now, so we'll see how this plays out. But yes, the heat is there. They say he's returning. I'm going to believe him, but then again, we believed him before with Malukas and with Pourchaire, and that simply was not the case.
Yeah, I mean, all it takes is one major sponsor to come on board to cover the majority of that car, and Nolan Siegel becomes expendable.
For sure. Any other parting thoughts on Gateway? We didn't talk about, we had so many the start of this race, Will Power's on the pole. Okay, Penske's going to turn around. Then Malukas takes the lead early, and you think, wow, could he get his first win? And then he faded toward the end, had a bad finish to the race, only was 12th. Obviously, you have Newgarden, you have McLaughlin, Pato O'Ward at one point. Great battle with Connor Daly, outstanding stuff. Both of them had good cars, finishing in the top 6. You have Scott Dixon, comes out of nowhere. It was like, oh, is this the Dixon strategy win? And then for a brief second, Eilert and Rosenquist tried to gamble, didn't work out. And then Kyle Kirkwood ends up your winner with a charging Christian Rasmussen as well. I mean, who was going to win this race? Even Santino Ferrucci, finished top 5, another good result for the Foyt boys. Who was going to win this race was constantly changing. I think that's what made it so entertaining, is that you simply had no idea, especially in that long final green flag run, who was going to win.
A lot of unpredictability. I mean, the battle between Pato and Connor Daly for position for 3-4 laps was some of the best wheel-to-wheel racing we've seen in quite some time in IndyCar on an oval over a period of several laps. And once again, Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan just absolutely struggling. All that praise that people put on them for Indy GP weekend, and we were kind of like, well, let's see what happens going forward. They don't have a top 10 in the last 3 races going back to Indy since that impressive performance at the GP. RLL always seems to have it together at the GP. Unfortunately, there are 16 other races that they have to race in.
What was your favorite in-car video? Connor Daly's start, Colton Herta sideways through a turn, drivers going 4 wide into a turn. Like, what was your favorite moment of the racing? You also had VK, and I can't tell if that's Malukas, who made contact and sparks were flying in front of Colton Herta on this onboard. The Indy 44 posted. I mean, there are so many just jaw-dropping moments that we got to see in this race.
I think Connor Daly's early movement, just being able to work the high line, which they always say, okay, it takes a while to get in and rubber in, is the experienced drivers like Connor Daly know what they can and can't get away with on short ovals, especially up high. And for him to work that, I think not only was impressive, but also showed other drivers that say, hey, I can work that high line too throughout the race. And that's what added to the drama. So I'll go the in-car for Daly, and then I'll go the in-car for Joseph Newgarden on the crash, because what little we saw of it with the camera being effectively taken out, once again showed the safety of these cars. We rag on it a lot because it's seemingly ageless and it's going to be an antique soon, but damn if it isn't pretty damn safe. And this was another crash where you say, if this happens even 5 years ago, is that a serious injury for one or the other? Because not only did Newgarden be inverted, but Louis Foster just gets broadsided at effectively full speed. And once again, it just shows the robustness of this car. Yeah, it's heavy as hell, and it needs to be replaced, but you can't discount the fact that IndyCar has built and improved upon a pretty damn safe race car.
A couple other quick notes on this race. Connor Daly, no onboard cam for the broadcast. We got to see it after the fact. So, again, love to see every car have an onboard. Alex Palou, the Newgarden-Foster incident. Foster is in the middle of the track. Newgarden's dipping down low to try to avoid. Who's on the high side but Alex Palou? As Lynn_IndyCar pointed out to us, he has 18 lives. And also with that crash, the green was on around the track as far as the light indicator system, but Aaron Likens, the IndyCar flagman, had his yellow flag out when Foster was spinning. So something to keep in mind.
We never did get an explanation on that, did we, on why
No.
it was so long?
No, we did not. 6 seconds.
I really like your idea of there being just a giant red button or a yellow button in the flag stand that Aaron Likens can just hit as he's flashing the yellow, and it goes yellow around the track.
Mm-hmm.
I have to think it was some sort of software issue or, missing the button or something, because that was the only. Now, it was the biggest accident of the night, but it was the only instance in which the yellow didn't come out almost instantaneously.
For sure. Yeah, that was a downside.
Happens. You just wish it wouldn't happen, but it happens.
9 different teams in the top 10, none of them Penske per Tony DeZino. It's pretty wild. Also, Nick Yeoman pointing out, your name is Alex Palou, Kyle Kirkwood, Dennis Hogger, or Loki Hughes. Got an excellent 2025 racing season. If your name is not one of those 4, then I'm sorry. You not want to race in 2025 in IndyCar or the series formerly known as Indy Lights.
We're waiting for that list to expand.
Right? We're still waiting. And then also, several people pointed out, including Will Buxton, the podium, 2018 Indy Lights champ, Pato Award, 2021 Indy Lights champ, Kyle Kirkwood, and 2023 Indy Lights champ, Christian Rasmussen. Pretty cool.
The ladder doing its job, or the former ladder.
And Graham Ray Hall's 300 start, obviously a forgettable one, but a milestone for him. Indeed, just 11th driver in IndyCar Series history to reach that. Okay, let's dive into TV ratings. Over 1 million, so you check that box. 1.012 million, up 88% over last year, which had 537,000 viewers. That was obviously on cable on USA Network. That's a positive. It's also the second consecutive non-Indy 500 race, third overall, above the magical 1 million mark for average viewership per Nathan Brown. Also back-to-back over 1 million, which is the first time that has happened post-Indy 500, I believe, since 2016. And you didn't have a great lead-in with the CONCACAF Gold Cup. Team USA blew out Trinidad and Tobago 5-0. That only got 894,000 viewers, so IndyCar beat that out. That was the lead-in. Good stuff there. I mean, obviously you're hoping for more, but maybe that will spell people to watch this weekend where they, hey, IndyCar was great last Sunday night. Let's check it out. When are they racing next? Oh, following Sunday afternoon. Maybe that's the momentum that we see.
Anything over 1 million, we've always said, is good. You and I are both hoping for maybe at least a 1.2. But, summer Sunday nights just are not great, but not having to go against, the NBA Finals or Stanley Cup Finals or anything like that, and not to mention, obviously, NASCAR and, even Formula One now, was beneficial. So maybe we expected more without factoring in the fact that, across the board, it sounds like Sunday night in the summer isn't a big night for people to watch TV.
Either way, though, I think we'll take it. You feel like there's finally some momentum on the ratings front, Indy 500 and beyond, and I think that's a good sign to see indeed. Anything else you want to add on Gateway?
Just a great event, a great race, and for the first time in a couple years, I'm looking forward to going back to Gateway. I just hope IndyCar gives them a little leniency in terms of let's give them a consistent date and a time and allow them to build it like they did early in this relationship instead of moving it all around. And some of that is Gateway too. Once they got a cup date, wanted to adjust some things. So it's not just a one-way street, but great job by Gateway, Bommarito, IndyCar. Cool event, great event, and looking forward to next year's Gateway and, the next short oval.
Yeah, and do we see a schedule change? Do we see more races moved to prime time for IndyCar? I mean, Iowa 2 can be moved. Iowa 1 can't because of MLB on Fox with their Saturday night package. But second race could be moved. Nashville could be moved. I don't think you want to do that. You'd be going up against Notre Dame, Miami, college football, and then the NASCAR Southern 500 at Darlington at basically the same time on Labor Day weekend. So I don't think you want to do that. Milwaukee, you'd have to bring in temporary lights to do, and I don't know if that's going to work, from a cost standpoint. But should every IndyCar oval race outside the Indy 500 be a night race?
It's easy to say yes. Logistically, probably not attainable.
Yeah. Also, then you diminish
races would be nice.
Then you diminish if every race besides the Indy 500 that's an oval is a night race. Then it's not a unique thing.
Not an event, right?
Yeah. It doesn't. It's not a separator. Then it's like, oh, another night race. Cool. But it was great to see and great that it worked out. Let's shift quickly. This happened right after we recorded last week, and quite honestly, I don't feel like there's much more to be said. But the IndyCar chassis delayed to 2028. Don Cusick was right after all, which we discussed last week on the pod. I guess
we didn't break it, but we were the ones that kind of saw that quote.
Yes,
and we're like, "Wait, what?"
I don't really.
Not to be true.
I don't think there's a whole lot more to go into it. I mean, is it disappointing? Yes. Is it surprising? No. I guess that sums up my thoughts on it.
I guess my question is there a deeper story here on why? Now, the disappointing thing is the reasoning they say is, well, we're still working on the engine formula. And our thing is, well, why are you still working on the engine formula? This should have been done.
Well, is that because they're trying to negotiate with Honda to get them to stay, and that's the delay?
Correct. Or is there an interested party saying, say Toyota, that is not only interested but saying, hey, we can't pull this off by 2027. Can you give us another year to 2028? I'm hoping it's something like that, and that would be acceptable to me. So I like to think that there's a deeper reason other than, well, we're just not ready with the engine formula. Are we not done with the engine formula set because Honda wants to come back on board, but we're still working through the negotiations, or hey, Toyota wants to jump in, but they're just not going to have time before 2027. I hope it's something like that. So you give IndyCar a little bit of a benefit of the doubt in that respect if something like that comes to fruition. But, if the worrisome thing is if Honda's done and you have nobody else to step in 2027, at least it's a 1 year of a lame duck basically with Chevy and Ilmore supporting everything. So I don't know. I just don't feel like we have enough information to really react in a fully informed way, because I think there's more to this.
For sure. And whether it's Toyota or Nissan's been mentioned, or I forget the other automaker that's been mentioned of late. Porsche. Yeah. Whether it's one of those three or someone else, that's the positive end of this, is right. They're getting a third and costs will go down for all the OEMs and everyone will be happy. If that's the case, then yes, you obviously do a delay. But like you said, we don't know enough yet. We have to know whether Honda's staying or going to really assess this. And that's kind of where
maybe that's
we're
as
at.
Simple as that is Honda still hasn't decided. They want to see the rest of this season out and then assess and make a decision. And IndyCar's like, okay, well, we're not going to announce engine regs until we know if Honda's in or out. And if Honda's waiting until the end of the season, that just does not give you enough time for 2027. So
no,
definitely more to the story. We'll wait and see if that starts coming out in the coming weeks and months.
All right, let's do a quick preview of Road America. Just announced that Green Bay Packers running back Josh Jacobs will be in the fastest seat in sports, so that's pretty cool. Road America, the XPEL Grand Prix at Road America. 3 key stats from Chad 200. Graham Rahal, 2 podiums, only finished outside the top 11 once in 10 career starts. So this is a track where Graham should excel. Joseph Newgarden, 2 wins, 3 poles, 6 podiums, 159 laps led. No other drivers led more than 76, completed all 545 laps in his 10 starts. Colton Herta, 2 poles, 5 front row starts, finished 8th, 5th, 5th, 2nd, 5th, 5th, 6th. So consistent, but no wins for Herta there. Taking a look at the weekend schedule. Heat going to be a factor. There could be a chance of storms as we record today, Friday, June 20th. Practice 1 on FS2, 4:30 Eastern today. Then coming up on Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, FS1, practice 2. Practice 1, obviously, on Friday. 2:30 Eastern on FS1, qualifying. And then on Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern, warm-up on FS1, and 1:30 Eastern on Big Fox for the race. Green flag at approximately 1:47 p.m. Eastern time. Also, of course, you can catch it on IndyCar Radio, IndyCar Live, Sirius XM, channel 218. All the coverage as well. This is a event that, the drivers rave about this track. It's going to draw a big crowd. The weather's going to be a factor. It's going to be in the low 90s predicted Saturday and Sunday, which is just unheard of. Usually we're looking at temperatures in the low to mid 70s for this event quite often. So heat's going to be a factor, and you just wonder, will that lead to some mechanical issues, some hybrid failures, something to keep in mind going into this weekend?
Yeah, potentially, and also endurance issues in terms of the drivers.
Yes.
If it's hot, if you're struggling, mentally it can be tough to stay focused. So I think this is going to be a very challenging event due to the heat for teams and drivers alike. The last 6 races at Road America, won by either Ganassi or Penske, 4 by Ganassi in the last 6 years, 2 by Alex Palou, and then 2 by Penske, Newgarden, and Will Power, of course, last year. So we'll see if some other team can win this race, but those 2 teams have dominated recently.
Who's your pick?
My pick, gosh, I keep trailing towards Team Penske because I feel like they got to win at some point, right?
One would think.
But I'm going to go Scott Dixon.
Okay.
In this race.
Good pick.
What about you?
I was going to pick Alex Palou just to be that guy, but I actually do think we're going to see a Team Penske driver win. Man, I'm not sure which one because all 3 run really well here. Give me Scott McLaughlin to win this weekend.
All right.
Have we gotten a single race-winning pick right this year? Because I don't think we have.
Oh, yeah, we have because we've picked Alex Palou. None of us have picked Kyle Kirkwood to win a race.
Yeah, you picked Alex Palou, I think, once or twice. You got a couple of. I don't think I've gotten a single one right.
Terrible.
Yeah, so don't even listen to my picks. They're bad. If you agree or disagree with who we think is going to win at Road America or any of our thoughts on Gateway, we'd love for you to hear from us. You can always find us on social media, IndyCar Podcast on Twitter /X, also the handle on Instagram, on Facebook. Just search for New Track Record. You can email us your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, what have you, newtrackrecordpodcast@gmail.com. You can support us via Patreon, patreon.com/newtrackrecord. And as always, download and listen on your favorite podcasting platform, whether that is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts. Rate the race for the Bommarito Automotive Group 500 at the racetrack formerly known as Gateway Motorsports Park. How would you rate Gateway?
I initially had it at 8.5, then I reevaluated, and I settled on a final number of 9.
Solid. I'm going to go 9.5.
Yep.
This is the best race we've had in IndyCar since the 2024 Indy 500, right? I don't think there's a doubt on that. In non-Indy 500 races, I don't know where you go back to in terms of, a comp. I'm not sure. This was an outstanding race. The only thing limiting it from being a 10 is just that we didn't have, a photo finish, if you will, right? We didn't have a battle for the win on the last lap.
in my mind, to get a 10, you have to have one of the closest finishes in IndyCar history, like maybe top 10. And obviously we didn't have that, or even like a last lap pass for the lead or anything like that. So, but it was very well received by our listeners, for sure.
Yes. This was, I think maybe you have to go back to last year's Indy 500. The most entries I have seen on a rate the race, I mean, it was double what we had for this year's Indy 500 in terms of submissions. But a 9.129, and I'm sure I forgot a couple. I mean, there are so many entries. But that was the average. I came up with my rudimentary math skills on my iPhone calculator. But that's really solid. Obviously, the highest rated race of the year, highest rated race, I'm sure, since the Indy 500 last year. I mean, Milwaukee was good last year, right? Gateway was solid last year. Nashville was good. But this was the best race in IndyCar since last year's Indy 500. Let's get to some entries on the mailbag. Alex Blow, sponsored by Solo Cup and Unlimited Slip DF, said, "Bring me Solo, a 12-ounce Solo." With Jabba the Hutt, Star Wars character.
Yeah.
Thought that was pretty good. Some thoughts on the Honda delay. Hunter's Way 67 says they're gone. Bill Hesse says, "Why are they participating in the design phase if they are leaving? Doesn't make sense to me." Good point. Ed Joris said, "Whoever's making this decision for Honda is indecisive." Also true. And adds, "Red Bull split with Honda during a similar period of indecisiveness. At some point, IndyCar's patience has to wear thin." A Historic Hot Laps said, "Peace." A gif of Keenan saying, "Peace." Snarky Moose, S2000_Moose. "Do we know that IndyCar has its act together to the point where they gave Honda a proposal they could say yes or no to?" Another good question. Don't know.
Very much so.
And then Sam 27 1994, great news for them staying. I think IndyCar is trying to negotiate with Honda and Chevy and come up with some good stuff. If Honda was out, really by now I think we would have heard outright or heard major unconfirmed leaks that they were out. One would think, but we haven't, right? And I think we'll get that decision.
That go the other way too? Wouldn't you think you did hear some unconfirmed links that they were back?
Yes. I think I'm at the point where if we don't have an answer after, at or around mid-Ohio, I'd kind of be surprised. That's kind of like one of their premier events. I mean, they obviously sponsor the race.
Would you say no news is good news or no news is bad news the longer we go?
No news is good news to me.
You think so?
I think so.
All right.
I think it would have already leaked by now.
Yeah, you are the glass half full of this duo.
Yes, I am.
I feel like no news is bad news because I'm glass half empty. So it fits.
Snarky Moose had a couple other submissions. For those who are convinced that you can't compete with NASCAR, the Canadian GP managed $1.9 million against NASCAR in Mexico City, which got slightly more than that. And for most sponsors, F1's demos are still more attractive. Adds, why do you insist that whoever gets the next F1 TV deal will have in-race commercials? I work for an F1 sponsor. I vehemently disagree. ESPN and Sky make money sans in-race commercials, and F1's ratings and demos would immediately take a major hit with in-race ads. My 30-year-old kids will watch an F1 race with me, but they're out of IndyCar and IMSA races with the first full-frame commercial. It's not in their viewing culture to tolerate commercial interruptions. Two things. Why do I insist that it will have in-race commercials? Because F1's asking price for the U.S. TV rights is astronomical. Like, they won $100 million plus, and that's why this has been played out so long. So that's why I think you're going to see it, because whoever gets it's going to have more advertising to financially make it work. It can't be that much of a loss leader for a media company. And then in terms of it's not in their viewing culture to tolerate commercial interruptions, Netflix has ads. Max has ads, HBO Max. Hulu has ads. And I get that you can pay for the ad-free option, but guess what? The ad-free option in some cases still includes limited ads. So I guess, YouTube has ads. I get you can pay for premium, but I just think maybe that's overplayed.
Yeah, and every other sport has ads. NFL is king. The NFL has commercials.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Trust me, I watch F1 races and wish there were ads. that I could fast forward and not have to watch 4 or 5 laps at a time. So I don't know. It all depends on demographic, I guess, and all that stuff. But it's going to be interesting. It was amazing to me that yes, it was network versus stream, but it was only about 0.1 away between Formula One and Cup on stream on Prime, which I know it's apples to oranges because it's network versus stream, but IndyCar has never come that close to beating Cup, no matter what it was on. And so I thought that was really telling.
A couple other submissions for the mailbag. This from Mom 2X over 2002. Hey, IndyCar, Penske, just a reminder, all the hype for NASCAR could have been all for IndyCar in Mexico this weekend. Y'all could have gotten there first. Pato Ward could be the face of the series, not NASCAR, and Daniel Suarez. We did learn, though, that the IndyCar announcement is basically imminent for Mexico City in 2026, let alone the schedule for 2026, that per this week's Racer.com mailbag.
Did you feel like there was a lot of hype for Mexico City?
I thought there was, and the crowd was solid, but man, NASCAR is so slow around there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think initially we were like, well, IndyCar screwed the pooch not getting there first, and I kind of do agree. But I just don't see NASCAR being accepted in Mexico as much as open wheel racing.
I agree.
I mean, Daniel Suarez obviously helps, but there's no rich tradition in Mexico of Mexican drivers in stock cars.
I mean, they do have a Mexico NASCAR series, or at least they did for a long time.
True, but they don't have an Adrian Fernandez and guys like that.
No,
you know what I mean? Like throughout history, and I think it's a big part of it. I think what brings out the Latin America and South America crowds is heroes from their country that have raced in that series or do race in that series, and there's a limited amount in Cup, and so I don't know. I just didn't feel like that was a dynamic event for NASCAR, but I also admittedly didn't pay much attention to it either.
I watched a little bit of it. They dealt with some rain early. It's hard because they look so slow going around that course. I think the IndyCar is going to look slow compared to F1 as well.
I'm slow.
But, man, it's hard. Our Critic 20. Did enough fans show up for you? Talking about Gateway. Maybe now you can direct that same energy towards the series and getting more ovals on the schedule. Chris Blair proves proper promotion equals people show up, especially locals. It's not the fans' fault ovals has struggled. It's the series/promoters. Couldn't agree more.
Well, I agree. I agree for this year, but it's not like the crowds were really good the last couple years. I mean, they were declining. So whether it was a reinvigorated effort for Bommarito or, I don't know, combination of factors, it was great. But let's not pretend that this race wasn't bleeding fans the last 3-4 years.
This on the new car delay, I thought this is a great point. Tyler_Allen, remember when even Roger Penske built a new car every year?
Back when money was plentiful.
True. The tobacco money was flowing back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And then elsewhere, in fact, you know what? That is it for the mailbag. So let's move on to news and notes and quickly get through the rest of what we have for this week. So Team Penske, 700th career pole as a team. Can you guess what track, and is not one that IndyCar is currently at, but has raced at in the past, that Penske has the most poles?
Penske has the most poles. They don't race there now, but they did before.
And it's a track everyone wants to go back to.
Texas.
No, Michigan.
Michigan. That was my next guess.
Yeah, Michigan 32, Phoenix 31, Mid-Ohio 29, Indianapolis 27. Now, does that include the road course, I wonder? And then Watkins Glen 24. Ryan Hunter-Ray will be in the FS1 booth for the Indy Lights race this weekend, so he'll join back up with this year's Indy 500 teammate Jack Harvey, so that's pretty cool. The sale of...
Louis Foster did a really good job.
He did. The sale of the Los Angeles Lakers, what does this mean for IndyCar? Well, Genie Bus, the Bus family, selling to Mark Walters, CEO, chairman of TWG Global. Now, you probably heard us talk about that because TWG Global owns Andretti Global IndyCar team. They also own Spire Motorsports NASCAR team, obviously Cadillac F1, and Wayne Taylor Racing in IMSA, along with the Dodgers and MLB, Chelsea FC, the LA Sparks, and the WNBA as well. $10 billion. Just unreal.
I can't even fathom money like that.
No, I cannot either. Brad Hollinger seeking a new investor to join the team he co-owns with Ricardo Juncos. Could this be...
What's interesting, too, with that story, and I mentioned it to you, is Hollinger was very much speaking like the majority owner of that team. I know it's Juncos Racing, but, or Juncos Hollinger at least. But, man, he was really speaking like a guy that's in control. But, if you got the money, you're probably in control.
For sure.
And he has the major funding of that team.
Could this be an option? I'm trying to think who was trying to come in. Obviously, Trackhouse, is trying to look at a team in Indy 500 entry. Is this an option? I don't know. But, I mean, they at least have better funding.
Brad Miller from a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know, or maybe it's just like another investor, a wealthy investor, or company that wants to come on board and help him at least alleviate some of the financial burden off of him.
For sure. Elsewhere in the racer mailbag, I think we covered some of the big things. I talked about Mexico City. It was NASCAR's request that schedule, that event not be confirmed until after the NASCAR race. And Pruitt says the 26 IndyCar schedule said to be imminent. So, again, expect a lot of the same tracks. I think Thermal probably out. Iowa doubleheader definitely out. Iowa, is that on the chopping block? I mean, Cup's sold out, but, we're not talking a lot of grandstand seats there to begin with. Do we see a lot of big changes besides Thermal out, Arlington, Mexico City in, and Iowa down to one race?
Yeah, I don't know. I hope not. We talked about continuity and continuity being king. I think maybe the success of Sunday's event at Gateway maybe shakes things up a little bit in terms of, okay, maybe we slide Gateway into another Sunday night race. Iowa only being one race in all likelihood next year, maybe that's an opportunity to put another night race together for a Saturday or Sunday night. So maybe some of those tweaks are coming before we see the final schedule released.
Is there anything else in the mailbag that was notable? I thought there was one other thing I'm forgetting.
Oh, nothing's coming to mind. I'm sure we missed something, but usually as I read it, I send you the pertinent things that...
Oh, Linus Lundqvist is suing Chip Ganassi.
Ah, yeah.
That was the other notable thing.
Yes, I think that's a good thing for Linus Lundqvist to do, I feel.
For sure. Elsewhere, we have... Will Power's contract talks. Nathan Brown had a good story, IndyStar.com. Roger Penske himself is running point on this, so don't expect that deal or no deal to get done anytime soon on that.
We will patiently wait.
Yes.
David Malukas, another very impressive run at Gateway. You feel like the last couple races started with Indy, he started to look like, okay, I could picture him as a Penske driver with this kind of performance. What that does for Will Power is anybody's guess. So we'll see what happens.
Marshall Pruitt, Racer.com.
Does Penske finance a second year for Malukas at Foyt?
Maybe. I think he signed through 26 to begin with, so maybe he stays there for one more year and Power gets a 1 year extension.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards that being the case because Will Power has shown with the struggles withstanding of Penske, he's shown no signs of slowing down on track, so maybe that's the play. Hey, here's more money to run Malukas next year, and we're going to keep our lineup.
And Marshall Pruitt, Racer.com, saying that they expect a decision, his status as a free agent, to be addressed within the next month. So that makes sense based on timelines that we've seen. CBS Sunday Morning, which is the top-rated Sunday news program show on TV and gets a lot of viewers, had a really long feature with David Letterman on IndyCar and the Indy 500. So you can check that out. They posted that. It's like 7.5 minutes or 8 minutes long, so I need to check that out. But a really good feature on there. Will Buxton pointing out Shane Van Gisbergen with Trackhouse said, I want to see this guy in IndyCar so bad. Double attempt in the future. Trackhouse wants to do it. That seemed to be a really good option moving forward. He won in Mexico City.
Who is it? I'm sorry.
SVG, who won Mexico City for NASCAR.
Yes.
And then AJ Foyt Racing announced that Marlene Sexton passed away on June 11th. You see Sexton properties on Santino Ferrucci's car over the last few seasons. There'll be a legacy tribute this weekend at Road America. So thoughts with the Foyt team and the Sexton family there. You have NASCAR working on finalizing a deal on a street course next year in the San Diego area.
You knew that was maybe not San Diego. You knew something was going to happen with NASCAR looking to get into SoCal because of their active pursuit of the Grand Prix of Long Beach, which obviously was the kibosh was put on. So not something that's surprising. I just don't see it having an impact on Long Beach whatsoever.
No. And then other items in news and notes as we wrap up. This was thrown in by Jenna Fryer, a racing reporter for the AP. I didn't see anything about this, but Colton Herta's spotter dodged gunfire in St. Louis at Gateway this weekend. She added this as a reply.
Yeah.
Talking about Mexico City and NASCAR. And
no context. Or
yeah. So I don't know, but I thought that was wild. Okay, time for tweets of the week.
In St. Louis are as rough as any other place in the country.
Tweets of the week time. Will Buxton on the penalty for Nolan Siegel in terms of the statement by Arrow McLaren. Nolan has had his mouth washed out with soapy water and has been sent to his bedroom without dinner. Scott McLaughlin replying to a fan who said cheaters get punished by the racing gods, put W and then an anchor emoji. You can put 2 and 2 together and figure that out. Thought that was great.
Impressive.
Nathan Brown in the Indy Star. It's been 8 races. We really shouldn't still be dealing with timing and scoring glitches. But we are.
Agreed.
Someone who was there, Nifty Car 52, who was sitting near turn 1 at Gateway, said cough and then a photo of the crowd. And that was like the not filled in part of the crowd. So it was a good crowd indeed. And then finally, Hunter J. Smith 03 replying on a GIF or image on the chassis delay. And it is the Miley Cyrus wrecking ball with a mugshot of Mark Miles replacing Miley's mug. I thought that was outstanding.
Phenomenal.
Just outstanding.
Phenomenal edit.
All right, let's go to our random split air driver of the week as we wrap it up.
Well, this is a random driver, but he is familiar with to everyone that is a fan of IndyCar, past and present. But I thought it would be a good profile because I didn't realize how little he raced in IndyCar, and that's Larry Foyt. Can you name the number of races that Larry Foyt did in IndyCar / IRL?
I'm going to say he started the Indy 500 2 times.
He started the Indy 500 3 times.
Okay.
And those were his only 3 races in the IRL / IndyCar. It was 2004, 2005, 2006. And he doesn't have a sterling record at the Speedway. His best finish in 3 starts is 30th. His best start in 3 starts was 22nd. Finishes of 32nd, 33rd, and 30th consecutive seasons racing for AJ Foyt Enterprises. He also did some ARCA racing as well here and there, did a couple races in Truck Series. I didn't realize did 2 full seasons in Nationwide. And I didn't realize A.J. Foyt Racing was a full-time runner in Nationwide. Did you?
No. 2001, 2002, full
2002.
seasons. He attempted the Daytona 500 three times, DNQ in 03 and 06. Did start in 2004 with A.J. Foyt Racing. Started 41st, finished 28th, and did a handful of Cup races as well in 2003. In fact, did most of the races that season. Trying to see the best finish for him. Looks like 16th at Homestead in the finale in 2003 was his best finish in Cup. Nextel Cup at the time.
Correct. Which I didn't realize, Larry Foyt, a lot more experience in stock cars than open wheel cars in his racing career. So, again, his three finishes at the 500, highest was 30th, and by the late 2000s, had really kind of went over to the management side with A.J. Foyt Racing and has really been in charge of that since. But in the 2000s, really active between IndyCar and ARCA and trucks and Nationwide and then Nextel Cup. So plenty of racing for Larry Foyt, AJ's son, but not a lot in IRL/IndyCar and a lot in stock cars. So I know everybody knows him, but wasn't really familiar with his IndyCar experience or lack thereof. Just 3 races at the 500. Larry Foyt, this week's Random Split Era Driver of the Week.
And we forgot to mention, looking at the spotter guide for Road America, we'll have Alex Palou in a red car, but not Target, but Solo, as in Red Solo Cup, the sponsor for Palou this weekend. Going to be a cool livery to check out. You can check out the full spotter guide on IndyCar.com. Several changes throughout the weekend, but that the most notable one for sure. All right, well, that does it for us. For Justin Kinney, I am Caleb Hatch. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week to recap the XPEL Grand Prix at Road America here on New Track Record Podcast.